In any high-stakes system, whether it's finance or pharmaceuticals, there's a step we kind of take for granted: human review. But have you ever really stopped to ask why it's there? In this explainer, we're going to challenge a really common and, frankly, really wrong idea about what that human in the loop is actually doing. You've heard this before, right? That human review is just a temporary thing, a patch. The whole idea is that once our AI gets smart enough, we can finally get that slow, messy human out of the way and get to full automation. It's treated like a bug, not a feature. But here's the big question. What if that entire way of thinking is just fundamentally wrong, especially when the stakes are really high? What if human review isn't a temporary fix, but a permanent, essential part of the machine itself? To get there, we have to make a huge shift in our thinking. We've got to stop seeing human review as some process that's just tacked on at the end. Instead, we need to start seeing it for what it is: a core architectural layer of the system. Think about the difference this way. On the left, you've got the old view, a temporary patch, something we're trying to get rid of. But on the right, that's the correct model, a permanent, designed-in system layer, just as important as your database or your API gateway. So let's be super clear. Human review is not friction slowing things down. It's not a bug we need to fix. It's a critical feature. It is a non-negotiable architectural layer, and it's built for one reason: system safety. Okay, so if it's a permanent layer, what's its job? Why is it so important? I mean, what can a human provide that even the most advanced AI just can't? Let's break down what the system can and, more importantly, can't do on its own. First off, let's give AI its due. These systems are incredible. They can sift through mountains of data, generate recommendations, spot patterns a human would never see, and flag potential risks. They are amazing assistive tools. But here it is. This is the bright, uncrossable line. For all of their power, AI systems cannot assume responsibility. They can suggest, they can recommend, but they can't be held accountable for what happens next. It all comes down to this one word: accountability, being answerable for an outcome. You can't put an algorithm on the witness stand, right? You can't ask an AI to sign off on a critical decision. That responsibility, well, that's a human job. And this is the real function of the human layer. It's not just about catching mistakes. It's there to preserve three things you can't really code into a system: accountability for the decision, the broader context that isn't in the data, and the nuanced judgment you need to handle real-world consequences. There's this quote from the source material that just hits the nail on the head. Assistance must stop short of authority. A system can help, it can analyze, but the final authority, the power to make the call, that has to stay with a person who can be held accountable. So, if this layer is so crucial, what happens when we try to remove it? What are the real consequences when we chase that shiny but flawed goal of total automation? Here's the most important thing to get. When you remove that formal human review step, responsibility doesn't just, poof, disappear. It's still there, attached to every single outcome. But now, nobody knows who owns it. And that is incredibly dangerous. The responsibility becomes totally unclear. When something goes wrong, and it will, who's on the hook? The person who deployed the model? The scientist who trained it? The vendor? That kind of ambiguity is a massive risk. And in a regulated world, it's completely unacceptable. And just look at the result. It's kind of counterintuitive, but taking the human reviewer out of the loop doesn't lower risk by getting rid of human error. It dramatically increases system risk by creating all that confusion. Having a clear, designated line of accountability is one of the best risk controls you can have. This brings us to the real goal here. We've been so focused on the how, automation, that sometimes we lose sight of the why. What is the actual business goal of using these advanced systems in the first place? So let's just ask the question straight up. Is the goal of an enterprise AI system to get to 100% automation, to remove every single human from the process? No, emphatically no. The goal isn't the method, like automation. The goal is the result: trustworthy, reliable, and defensible outcomes that the business, its customers, and its regulators can all count on. And it all connects in this perfect, inescapable chain of logic. If our goal is trustworthy outcomes, then what we need is trust, and trust requires accountability. And as we've just seen, real accountability requires a human. You just can't break that chain. So we end on the most powerful, simple summary of this whole thing. The drive for automation is real and it's powerful, but it can never, ever replace the need for human ownership. Because in any system that truly matters, trust is everything. And accountability, well, that requires humans.